Rain hammered against my windshield so hard I could barely see the road ahead. The city lights blurred into streaks of gold and red while thunder shook the car like the sky itself was angry. Beside me, my wife's best friend, Vanessa, sat silently in the passenger seat. Her heels were kicked off on the floorboard. Mascara smudged beneath her eyes. One hand trembled around a half-empty bottle of water. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. "You okay?" I asked carefully. She laughed softly, but it sounded broken. "Do I look okay, Ethan?" "No." She looked destroyed. An hour earlier, we'd all been at my wife Claire's birthday dinner. Expensive rooftop restaurant. Champagne. Smiles. Fake laughter. Then Vanessa got a phone call and disappeared into the bathroom crying. Claire stayed behind with her friends. "Can you take Vanessa home?" she whispered to me before turning back to the party. At first, the drive was quiet. Then Vanessa suddenly said, "Don't take me home." I glanced at her. "What?" Her eyes slowly turned toward me. "Vulnerable. Dangerous. Take me somewhere private." The words hit like a punch. "Vanessa. Please." Lightning flashed across her face, and for one terrifying second, I saw something deeper than sadness. Fear. I swallowed hard. "Did something happen?" She stared out the window again. Then she whispered the sentence that changed everything. "Claire's been lying to you." My foot nearly slipped off the brake. The rain got louder. And suddenly, the woman sitting beside me didn't feel like my wife's best friend anymore. She felt like the beginning of a disaster. I pulled into an empty overlook above the city. The rain softened into a cold drizzle, tapping lightly against the roof while distant headlights crawled through the streets below us. Vanessa wrapped her arms around herself. I kept both hands on the steering wheel. "Okay. Start talking." She looked at me like she was debating whether to jump off a cliff. "You love Claire, don't you?" The question annoyed me instantly. "She's my wife." "That's not what I asked." I exhaled slowly. "Yeah, I do." Vanessa nodded like she expected the answer, and hated it anyway. For years, she'd been part of our lives. Holidays. Beach trips. Sunday brunches. She was practically family. But tonight felt different. The tension inside the car was thick enough to choke on. "She's cheating on you," Vanessa finally said. I stared at her. "No. I knew you'd say that." "She wouldn't do that." Vanessa reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. Then she handed it to me. A photo filled the screen. Claire. Kissing another man. My chest tightened so hard I thought I might throw up. "When was this taken?" I asked quietly. 2 weeks ago." "That's impossible." "I wish it was." I zoomed in on the picture. Claire's face. Her hand on his chest. The intimacy. The certainty. No misunderstanding. No excuse. My stomach twisted violently. "Why are you showing me this now?" I whispered. Vanessa's eyes watered. "Because I can't watch her destroy you anymore." The city lights flickered below us while silence swallowed the car whole. Then she said something even worse. "She's been planning to leave you for months." And suddenly, the life I thought I had started collapsing in real time. I drove aimlessly for nearly 20 minutes after that. Neither of us spoke. The windshield wipers scraped back and forth like a metronome counting down the death of my marriage. Finally, I pulled into a deserted diner parking lot. "You should go home," I muttered. Vanessa looked at me carefully. "You don't mean that." I laughed bitterly. "You just destroyed my life." "No. Claire did." I slammed my palm against the steering wheel hard enough to make her jump. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" Her voice cracked. "Because people are cowards." I leaned back and closed my eyes. Memories flooded my head all at once. Late nights at work. Claire hiding her phone. Cancelled date nights. The emotional distance I kept pretending wasn't real. God, how had I missed it? "You know the worst part?" Vanessa whispered. I looked at her. She used to brag about it. My jaw tightened instantly. "What?" Vanessa stared down at her hands. "She said you were too loyal to ever suspect anything." That hurt more than the cheating itself. Not betrayal. Humiliation. I stepped out of the car into the freezing rain, desperate for air. My breathing turned ragged while water soaked through my shirt. Then the passenger door opened behind me. Vanessa walked toward me slowly. "You don't deserve this." "Neither do you." She froze. The look on her face told me I'd accidentally hit something real. "How long have you known?" I asked. "A while." "And you stayed friends with her?" Tears filled her eyes instantly. "You think I'm proud of that?" The pain in her voice caught me off guard. Then she whispered, "I tried to stop loving her years ago." I frowned. "What?" But Vanessa shook her head immediately. "Forget it." Yet something had changed. The rain. The darkness. The way she looked at me. Suddenly, this wasn't just about my wife anymore. We ended up at a small lakeside motel outside the city. Not because anything romantic happened. Because neither of us was emotionally capable of going anywhere else. I rented 2 rooms. Vanessa gave me a tired smile. "You're still a gentleman." Barely. Inside my room, I sat on the edge of the bed staring at the wall for what felt like hours. Then came a knock. 3 soft taps. I opened the door. Vanessa stood there barefoot, wrapped in an oversized hoodie. "I can't sleep." I hesitated, then stepped aside. She walked in quietly and sat near the window while moonlight shimmered across the lake outside. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then she asked, "Do you remember the first time we met?" I frowned slightly. "Claire's graduation party." Vanessa smiled sadly. "You brought flowers for Claire's mom because she mentioned loving lilies once." I shrugged. So? So men don't notice things like that anymore." The room grew quiet again. Dangerously quiet. "You deserved someone who appreciated you," she whispered. I looked at her carefully. "And you deserved better friends." That broke something inside her. Tears slid down her cheeks while she covered her mouth. Instinctively, I moved closer. She looked up at me with shattered eyes. "I hate her for what she did to you," she whispered. Our faces were inches apart now. I could feel her breath. My pulse started racing. This was wrong. Completely wrong. But grief does strange things to lonely people. Vanessa touched my hand gently. And for one terrifying second, I wanted her to kiss me. Then my phone buzzed violently on the table. Claire calling. Again. And again. And again. I ignored the calls. At first. Then Claire texted. "Where are you?" Another message appeared seconds later. Why is Vanessa not answering? Then, "We need to talk." Vanessa saw the screen and looked away immediately. "She knows." "She knows what?" "That I told you." I rubbed my face with both hands. "I don't even know what's real anymore." Vanessa sat beside me on the bed carefully, keeping just enough distance to stay respectful. "Can I tell you something honestly?" I nodded weakly. I used to envy Claire. I looked over. She had everything, Vanessa continued softly. The perfect husband. The stable life. Someone who actually loved her. I swallowed hard. And instead of valuing that, she threw it away. There was no manipulation in her voice. No seduction. Just sadness. Raw sadness. For the first time that night, I noticed how exhausted she looked too. Like she'd been carrying this secret alone for months. "Why do you care so much?" I asked quietly. Vanessa stared at me for a long time. Then she finally answered. "Because watching you love her made me believe good men still existed." The room went silent. My chest tightened again, but differently this time. Warmer. More dangerous. She quickly stood up, realizing what she'd admitted. I should go. But before she reached the door, I said her name. "Vanessa." She stopped. "Thank you for telling me." Her eyes watered again. Then she smiled through the pain. "You're welcome, Ethan." She walked out slowly. But just before the door closed completely, she turned back and whispered, "If you knew the full truth, you'd hate Claire even more." The door clicked shut. And suddenly, I wasn't sure I wanted to know the rest. I barely slept. At sunrise, I found Vanessa sitting alone by the lake with a cup of coffee in her hands. Fog rolled across the water while birds cried somewhere in the distance. She looked peaceful. Until she saw me. "There's something else, isn't there?" I asked. She nodded slowly. Then she pulled another phone from her purse. Not hers. Claire's old phone. She left it at my apartment months ago. Vanessa opened a hidden folder filled with screenshots. Messages. Photos. Hotel reservations. My stomach dropped lower with every swipe. But then I saw a familiar name. Daniel Mercer. My business partner. "No," I whispered. Vanessa looked sick. I'm sorry. The world tilted sideways. Daniel had been my best friend since college. He stood beside me at my wedding. He helped build my company from nothing. And he was sleeping with my wife. I started shaking uncontrollably. How long? Almost a year. A year. 365 days of lies. Vanessa grabbed my arm gently before I collapsed onto the bench. I wanted to tell you sooner. Why didn't you? She looked ashamed. Because Claire threatened me. I stared at her. She said if I told you, she'd ruin my life. I laughed bitterly. And you still told me. Vanessa's voice trembled. Because I fell in love with you. The words hit harder than anything else that night. She covered her face instantly, horrified by her own confession. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. But I couldn't speak. Because deep down, part of me already knew. By noon, Claire found us. She pulled into the motel parking lot like a hurricane in designer sunglasses. The second she saw Vanessa beside me, her expression exploded with rage. You traitor! Vanessa stepped back immediately. Claire stormed toward her. You told him. I couldn't lie anymore. Claire laughed coldly. Please. You just wanted him for yourself. The accusation hit like gasoline on fire. Claire, I snapped, tell me she's lying. But my wife only stared at me with icy silence. That was my answer. You and Daniel? I whispered. Claire crossed her arms defensively. You checked out of this marriage years ago. I actually laughed from disbelief. So cheating was easier? You were emotionally unavailable. And that justified this? She looked away. That tiny movement shattered whatever love I still had left. Then Claire turned toward Vanessa with venom in her eyes. You pathetic little thief. Stop, I warned instantly. Claire ignored me. You've been obsessed with my life for years. Vanessa's voice finally cracked. Because you wasted everything I wanted. Silence. Heavy silence. Claire blinked in shock. Then realization slowly spread across her face. Oh my God, she whispered. You really love him. Vanessa started crying. And suddenly nobody was yelling anymore. Just three broken people standing in a motel parking lot beneath gray skies and dying love. Then Claire looked at me one final time. Are you leaving me? I stared at the woman I once would have died for. And realized I already had. Little by little. For years. Claire left without another word. Just got back in her car and disappeared down the highway. Vanessa wiped tears from her face immediately. I'm sorry. I made everything worse. No, I said quietly. You ended the lie. We stood there for a long moment while cold wind swept across the lake. I never wanted to come between you two, she whispered. I know. I tried so hard not to feel this way. I believed her. That was the problem. Every emotion between us felt painfully real. No games. No manipulation. Just two wounded people colliding at the worst possible moment. I can't be a rebound, Vanessa said suddenly. I looked at her carefully. You deserve time to heal. Her voice trembled harder now. And if you choose me someday? I need to know it's because you actually love me. Not because Claire broke your heart. That might have been the most honest thing anyone had said to me in years. I stepped closer slowly. So what happens now? Vanessa smiled sadly through tears. Now you rebuild your life. And you? She looked down at the lake. I learned how to stop loving impossible people. Something inside me cracked open completely then. Without thinking, I pulled her into my arms. She froze at first. Then held me tightly like she'd wanted to for years. No kiss. No passion. Just two shattered souls holding each other while the world quietly fell apart around them. 3 months later, I signed the divorce papers. Claire moved to Chicago with Daniel. Ironically, their relationship crashed within weeks. Turns out betrayal doesn't build stable foundations. I rented a small cabin near the lake to clear my head and rebuild my company from scratch. Therapy helped. Time helped more. But strangely, the person who helped most was Vanessa. Not romantically at first. She became my safest place. Morning coffee on the porch. Late-night phone calls. Long walks without pressure or expectations. We healed slowly together. One evening, while watching the sunset bleed across the water, she finally asked the question we'd both been avoiding. Do you regret that night? I looked at her carefully. The woman who destroyed my illusion. but saved my life. No, I admitted. Vanessa smiled softly. Neither do I. Then she handed me something small. A folded letter. What's this? I almost mailed it to you a year ago. I opened it carefully. Inside was a handwritten confession. Every truth about Claire. Every warning. And at the very bottom, I think I'm falling in love with you, and I hate myself for it. My chest tightened. You kept this? I couldn't send it. I looked up at her. You should have. Tears filled her eyes instantly. And this time, when I kissed her, it didn't feel like betrayal. It felt like finally coming home.